Greetings gamers, I'm Anto, and it's no secret that I love the map making program Wonderdraft. I've done a whole bunch of videos on it. In fact, you can see an entire playlist I've done on it right there. Well, it's been about a year since Wonderdraft was first made public, and the recently released 1.1 version added a whole bunch of new features. So today we're going to be taking a look at this new release, see what's changed in the last year, and talk about what I would like to see from Wonderdraft in the future, and then see whether I think Wonderdraft is still the best map making option on the market. When Wonderdraft was first released, it had a lot of potential. It was doing a lot of the core things that a map making program needs to do exceptionally well. And because of this, one of the biggest draws for it was its potential and where it would be going in the future. Well, now here we are a year later, and it's time to see what's become of that potential. There have been a lot of updates to Wonderdraft in the last year, and a lot of them have changed things quite significantly. So before we dive in and start taking a look at how Wonderdraft is now, I want to just sort of list some of the biggest changes that have come in the last year. So now that we know what's changed, I think we should dive in and just start creating. I can show off some of these tools that have been added in the last year. I should have loaded this before I started recording. The latest version is 1.1. If you already own Wonderdraft, there is an internal version checker. There are some bugs with updating from that internal version checker, so I recommend you go to your Humble Bundle page, download the exe file or the file for this version of Wonderdraft and do a fresh install that way. You won't lose any of your map data, but it won't bug out quite as much as updating it internally is on this build. So opening up, we've got our water canvas. We can change the color of our water just like we've always been able to. Change the hue, change the saturation, change its values and the stain amount. But then if you look here, we've also got the water brush tool. Now this is something I know a lot of people have been waiting for a long time, to be able to go in and paint on the water, and it's really awesome to see that we can do that now. So let's dive in and quickly generate some land masses. We will choose the world option just as an example, just so that you can see the type of worlds that you could create really easily in Wonderdraft. One of the reasons I love this program so much is because for the DM that doesn't have incredible art skills, doesn't have a lot of time, but still wants something that looks really nice, this is an amazing option. You can come into the generator, click world, click generate, and boom, you've got your landforms ready to go. So once the world has been created, you can see that this particular one looks a little rough. It looks a bit odd, but I can just change the water level to give me more interesting continents. Boom, there we go. I've got a world map. Then I can go in and detail it, or if I don't want to detail it at this stage, say I want to come to this area here and make a detail map, I can go over to my menu and create detail map. It'll tell me I'm about to lose this, so I need to save it. So I'll just call it YouTube November 19. It will save this map, and then it will give me the option to create a detail map based on this. So if I'm a new dungeon master and I want to create a new campaign setting, I can use this tool to generate my world map, and then I don't need to worry so much about my world map straight away. I can go in and immediately I can just start making a detail map. So let's select the area here. We'll go for this section of land here, and we will click create. It'll spend a minute just working it out and importing it into this new map. And then we're going to have this section of the world might be where our campaign is. So there we are. Once it's opened up, this is going to be our campaign map. This is where we're going to put our players and they're going to start out. But we've already got that world map that this map fits into. So at a later date, when they say they want to go somewhere else, we can use this information and move out to the world map. So the first thing that we want to start with, let's start with our waterways. Let's go to water, grab our river tool, and just start placing some rivers. Increase the size of some and just start placing them. Let's meander some of them around, maybe move them like that, maybe have a really long and winding one here, and then another one here, maybe one that comes down like this, and another one that comes down like there. Wherever we want to put them, add in our rivers. Then we can come in with our lake tool, and maybe on this river boom, we've got a lake immediately placed on that river. Maybe we want one here, but we want it to be a bit larger, maybe like a Great Lake. So we can come in, place it, we've got a lake straight away. That's our waterways pretty much done. If we want more minute control, we can choose the freshwater brush and zoom in, change our brush size, and then we can come in and remove some of these artifacts and it won't mess with our coloring. We can clean up our lake here. Maybe we want to add another smaller feeding tributary to this river. Well, we can come in and we can manually add one if we wanted to, or we can grab our river tool and pop that in there like that and have some tributary systems feeding into our rivers. Then we can head over to our symbols tool and we can start adding some mountains. There are a lot more mountains to choose from now than there were at launch, and especially when you consider third-party assets, there are a huge number of options now. I still like the pencil style mountains that we had right at launch, so I'm just gonna drag some of them. That's a bit too large. Change our size. I'm just going to drag some of them in and form them over the starts of our rivers. So all of our rivers will be starting around mountains. And then we want to reduce our size and add in some more detail to our mountains, little foothill style bits, just to give us more variation in size and texture. And then we'll grab some actual hills, change our size a little, and put some actual foothills around our mountains. Just really rough, really quick, blocking in these shapes. You can see that I'm using a mouse and keyboard for this. I'm not using a graphics tablet. That's another thing I really like about Wonderdraft. If you don't have a graphics tablet, if you're not a really arty person, Wonderdraft is still really easy to use. And because of the way that these assets are almost randomly placed, it looks much more natural than placing each individual one by hand. So after minutes of work, we've already got a really strong framework for our map. We've got mountain ranges, we've got rivers, we've got lakes. We're already starting to tell a story here. Let's go in now and add in some trees. So I'll grab the paper trees, check my sizing and just zoom in a little bit, and then we'll just go in and we'll start adding our trees and start adding forests here and there. So we go into our symbols now, and maybe we want to add a couple of locations. Let's grab some images for some cities and change their colors a little bit, and we can go in and we can drop in some cities. Maybe there is a city here, and maybe there is a city here and here. Anywhere the rivers meet the sea is always a good choice for a city. So once you've added your settlements, if you want to start naming them, Wonderdraft has a settlement and a body of water name generator. So you can just click on there somewhere, click generate, and you will immediately start getting names. And then, like I mentioned earlier, Wonderdraft has added a grid system. So if you want to add a grid system, you can add a flat hex, change the size of it. Let's say about 100 would probably be good, and then go in and add a distance measurement. So we come in and we create our distance measurement, and then what we have, because we've added our grid and added our distances, we can come here into the measuring tool, and then I can measure by using map scale units. I can measure how far it would be to travel from Southern Pool via Mid-Knoll and across and up via land to Alpine for 560 miles. That makes it super easy to be able to measure distances in your world. And as you can see, it takes no time at all to make a map, even if you have no art skills and no idea how to make maps. You can make awesome looking maps really quickly. If I wanted to spend another 30 minutes on this, add some color, add some extra details, it would look even better. But for the sake of 10 minutes, if that, I think this looks pretty good. And that's why I love Wonderdraft, because it is really quick and simple to make an awesome looking map. You can export it at 16,000 pixels if you want to. I can open this up at 2x export scale and I can zoom in and look at all my things. I can get as detailed as I want to be. If I wanted to, I could make all of these symbols 10 times smaller and really zoom in and get that minute detail. And it's those sorts of things that make Wonderdraft the best map making software for me. I have looked into Incarnate again recently. I thought, I've spent a year looking at Wonderdraft, I should probably give Incarnate a go. I opened it up, clicked to go through to take out the Pro subscription, and as soon as I saw that the maximum resolution that you can make is 2000 by 1500 pixels, I closed it down. But I don't personally see the point in spending either $5 a month or $25 for the year on Incarnate and only being able to make a 2000 by 1500 pixel map when I can spend $30 on Wonderdraft, own it forever, and I can now make up to 16,000 pixel maps. If you are a brand new DM, someone that has no art skills, I think Wonderdraft is the best option. The land generation and the raise lower landmass tools make much more natural looking coastlines than you can get in things like Incarnate. If you are an experienced DM and someone that has some skills in art, I still think Wonderdraft is a better option than going full on Photoshop and doing it entirely from scratch. You've got a lot of pre-made tools, but you've also got a lot of customization with your color palette, and with being able to add custom assets. You could draw your own set of custom assets in your own style, load them into Wonderdraft, have it generate the land for you, and then start working. Before the latest version of Wonderdraft, I had 4 big wishes for the program. The first was being able to paint water to get a bit more variation in the water. The second was being able to upscale my assets. The third was being able to export at a larger resolution than 8K. And finally, I really wanted more city support. Now in 1.1, 3 out of 4 of those things have been addressed. I can paint water, I can upscale assets, and I can export at 16K. The only thing left to address in Wonderdraft for me personally is cities. Now this isn't totally fair on Wonderdraft because it was made as a world builder and not as a city builder. But as I've explored in a couple of videos before, I'll link one up here, you can use it to make cities, and a lot of the core functionality really works for cities, but I would like to see some more support for that. More and more people are making city maps in Wonderdraft, and at the moment it's an incredibly laborious process. You've got to manually place all your buildings, etc. I would like to see some official packs come out from Wonderdraft with city blocks that you can place. I'd really like to see a city wall tool that functions like the path tool, where I can select a starting point and then draw around a city with this wall and then place some towers. That would be awesome. And I'd like to see some top-down special buildings, taverns, churches, castles, all those kinds of things officially supported from Wonderdraft. There are several different third-party makers that make excellent assets like these, but I would like to see them implemented in Wonderdraft, built into its architecture, so I could use like a paintbrush and paint in some buildings in an area. That would be awesome. And that brings me to what I think the biggest improvement in Wonderdraft has been in the last year, and that is the community. The huge number of artists that have come out in the last year and released asset packs for Wonderdraft for free is awesome. It's gotten to the point now where almost anything you could want to include in a fantasy map will be supported by someone for free somewhere for Wonderdraft. If you use Wonderdraft, I think that you have to use Mythkeeper, which is a third-party application which lets you install custom assets directly and lets you browse the cartography assets website and select things to install in Wonderdraft. If you haven't checked out cartography assets, head over there, have a look at the vast options that they've got for assets for Wonderdraft. Because it's so easy to add new assets, themes, textures into Wonderdraft, the scope is still really my biggest draw to the program. I want to see where this program is in 5 years, after having 5 years of people building things for it. I want to take my own crack at making some assets for Wonderdraft from scratch and go through that whole process, because even after just 1 year the available options have exploded. I can't wait to see how many more there are in the future. So 1 year on, do I still think Wonderdraft is the best option out there? I think that it's probably pretty clear that I think the answer is yes. Incarnate Pro, like I said, $5 a month, $25 a year. Wonderdraft, $30 one-time purchase. I know for a lot of people $30 is a lot to spend on a program for D&D or for map making, but if you plan on making a lot of maps, it really is worth it. You get it for life, you can move it from machine to machine, and it has a lot more functionality going on under the hood than Incarnate. You can make much bigger maps, much more detailed maps than you can on Incarnate Pro, and you're not tied into that subscription model to get hold of your maps. You create your maps locally on your machine, you keep a copy of them, you are totally in control of the backup process. At the moment, I do think that Wonderdraft is unrivaled in this space. Obviously, if you are a talented artist and you have Photoshop or another similar program, you're always going to be able to produce nicer looking things. But for those of us that don't have that level of art skill or don't have that level of time, I think Wonderdraft is the best option currently out there. Now, there are things coming in the near future that I think might be able to rival it. Project Deus is one example, especially considering Deus seems to have some pretty impressive looking city generation. And for me personally, I make a lot of cities. I want to be able to procedurally generate a really nice looking city and not have to rely on getting a Watabu map, bringing it into Wonderdraft, pasting over it with individual assets and doing it that way. Which is why I say that I really hope that Wonderdraft's next big push is in making city maps, because I think that the time is going to come where that is what's going to be separating the competition in these map making softwares. But that's all for today, folks. That is my overview of Wonderdraft 1.1 and my assessment of what's happened over the last year. If you already own Wonderdraft, I'd love to see some of your maps down in the comments below. If you've been considering it, I'd love to hear whether or not you're going to pull the trigger and get a copy of Wonderdraft. And if you've never heard of it, let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. But until next time, happy gaming. Thanks for watching. If you're new here and you like what you see, hit that subscribe button. I release a new RPG, tabletop and world building related content every single week. And if you enjoy what I do here and want to help the channel grow, consider supporting me on Patreon. And if you want to keep watching, I've got another couple videos over there. But until next time, happy gaming.